All right. Good morning, Lucas. Looks like more developments in the world of GameStop. Since we've been covering it so much, I think we gotta we gotta cover what's happening because there's interesting things afoot here. So I guess one of the things that I saw that was most interesting was there are uh, analysts and people that have been looking at this that are now upgrading GameStop to a buy, and I've also seen some people say that. GameStop is the next Berkshire Hathaway because of their $4 billion in cash and their ability to invest in whatever they want. So now they're kind of transforming. I think, if I remember correctly, wasn't Berkshire Hathaway like a vacuum cleaner company or something when they started?
Berkshire Hathaway. Oh, we need Aleph in here right now. Berkshire Hathaway. I think it was an insurance company. Maybe it was a vacuum company. But definitely, there's an interesting history with Warren Buffett in
I
that.
was close. It was a textile manufacturing company.
There you go. Yeah,
See,
and
I knew there was some kind of a like ground something cloth connection vacuum that
see,
textiles.
yeah, it should have been a steamer. But no, Warren Buffett tried to acquire it early in his career, and things went south in the deal. I forget what happened, but then he um, then he plotted and planned, and he eventually took over the company. And I think it's part of the reason why his holdings are called Berkshire Hathaway is the pride he had in. I don't know. That's a. It, I would. I really wish we had Aleph on to tell that story. I forget all the details of it, but I think you're absolutely right to point out that GME has the ability to become something else with the cash holdings that they have. So um, interesting that analysts are catching up on it. They seem to have doubted all the things about Roaring Kitty. Um, Keith Gill, even though if they had gone back to the onus of what Wall Street Bets was, what these people were trying to do, um, it would seem to me that he is deeply motivated by I don't know, finding. Um, I don't know. I don't know, but in part by destroying institutional capital, but in other things like building a company. So um, I don't know. GME very interesting right now.
Well, just to stick on the Berkshire Hathaway connotation or connection here of how people are saying, how might GameStop transform itself? What is the next move for GameStop? So yesterday, during our show, actually, they were supposed to have their earnings meeting, and there was such an incredible amount of interest from investors because there are lots of them. I mean, to think that this is not a stock that is widely held by a lot of people on the planet is just not to think about this correctly because Roaring Kitty's live stream had 600,000 people when they tried to do their online stream of the annual meeting yesterday. It looked like a DDoS attack because there were so many people trying to pile in. So then they tried to reschedule it for today and they still felt like they weren't ready. So now it's been rescheduled again for Monday because there's an anticipation that there are going to be so many people piling in to look at what Ryan Cohen has to say with respect to the company. So, I think that this idea that GameStop has now transformed itself into this entity that has the ability to invest in whatever they want with a tremendous amount of cash. And they also have the ability to buy back stock when they want to. It's a $100 million allocation. I think it's starting to look very appropriate to compare this to Berkshire Hathaway. And if you look at what Warren Buffett's investing in right now, this looks like kind of curmudgeonly old school style investing. I think he's extremely allocated into US treasuries. And I don't know, Lucas, does that seem like a great investment plan right now?
No, not really. But what does Warren Buffett's investment strategy was to find companies that he believed in. If we live in a world where money is free and money is printed all the time, so and the only business model that works is to go out and buy debt because money is free, and then to go buy companies and break them up and tear them apart and sell them for parts. Uh, Maybe that's the only option that he had left.
Well, that's what they tried to do to GameStop. They tried to destroy it. This was the whole short thesis around GameStop, and so now with their $4 billion in the bank, which equates to $10 per share, pre-split, that means that when GameStop was originally trading during the heyday of the huge run up, that would have meant that GameStop is essentially sitting at $40 per share, right? Because they originally went through a 4-for-1 stock split, so that means they increased the total amount of stock by 4. So if they're sitting on $10, and if we were talking about like back when this was originally happening, they essentially have $40 per share in cash. So anybody who opened a short position long ago and they opened it at anything less than 40, that they have more cash than that just as on their balance sheet. So this should get pretty interesting as well. There was a couple other things that I thought were worth looking at. So this was a post that was put out where it's talking about what Burn Kitty actually did yesterday. So this is selling a bunch of his call contracts and then exercising those, getting 4 million shares and 1,000, bringing him up to a total of 9,100,000, which is kind of like a magic number, because Ryan Cohen, I think when he did a reporting, see if you see this date of when this stuff was all posted, that's how many shares that he had acquired, and that was his purchase price. So an interesting sort of match trade of what RC Ventures had done to get a position in GameStop to begin with. And so this post talks about how much he got into as far as shares, and then started talking about this entity Wolverine that sold those call options and what's going to happen next. So I thought that this was kind of an interesting post from this account, talking about what likely happened yesterday, and it was I think maybe a copy of what originally was posted to Reddit. Then I think this is the one that we had on originally about the upgrade to buy. So this is what is anticipated of happening with the regular business of GameStop, which is just they have retail stores and they're selling video games, and what the expectations are for what they're going to be doing in revenues.
Going to the retail stores of GameStop, I think it's also both interesting, like to think about I don't know, the retail environment of malls, whether they be strip malls or commercial malls, but whatever. Real estate property values in the United States are something that are going to lag behind, and the price inflation that we see, the monetary base inflation. If say if people are raising their wages, especially I think about like towns and counties, if they are running to keep up with all of the inflation that we're seeing, we're going to see property values raised. And we talk about taxes in America, but in one way that we fund the government, it's by keeping the tax rate fixed and raising the assessment of the values of the various things, our assets. And in some ways, it's our jobs. Think about how the government taxes our jobs and income, and if the amount we get paid every year is going up, then the revenue is going up for them too. But I keep thinking that there's going to be something that happens in real estate markets, or the prices of real estates, whether it be residential or commercial. Um, and so GameStop could be positioned in an interesting way to take advantage of whatever happens there.
Well, another thing that's been discussed about their traditional business has been that with the amount of cash that they have available, they're now in a position to start renegotiating leases, to start realigning towards, their most profitable stores. I think it's, always appropriate for a business to look at what stores are performing, what stores are not performing, and to align to the ones that are producing the most revenue. I know that since I've been more paying attention to GameStop, I try to look at where they are and which ones they exist, and then pop in when I can and see how many people are there. And I've actually been kind of surprised about the level of inventory they've got. They always seem like they're fairly well stocked. Always seems like there's quite a few people in the store shopping. So I think part of what's happened also with this GameStop stuff is it's just been tradition. It's been tremendous marketing for GameStop. And if you think about it, this has been in the news constantly. Everybody's talking about it. Now, I mean, you couldn't buy this kind of press. Like, if you wanted to just go out and, like, say, do a media blitz and you wanted to buy all of this advertising, I mean, think about how many shows they've been on, how much time they've gotten on air, how much, like, the attention that they have now. And a lot of the people who are investors, who are very retail investors, have said, this is where I shop to buy video games now. Like, I like the company, I like the stock. This is where I'm gonna buy. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this also just traditionally floating the business and raising up their revenues, just based on the fact that there are all these people across the planet that are starting to say, you know what, this was our bet to sort of thumb our nose at the hedge funds, but now it's just become a company that we really like and we love. And why would we buy video games from Amazon or Walmart if we can just go buy from GameStop? And they do sell online too. So I think it's kind of been a marketing blitz for them additionally.
Well, and I think there's also something to the we thought that everything was going to go to online sales, to online marketplaces, and there's something to physically holding something, also being around other people. I think about the correlation with. I know the GME, like Wall Street's Bets Group, was also looking at AMC movie theaters. I noticed that Sony bought. Did you see Sony bought Alamo Drafthouse Cinemas from based out of Austin recently?
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and what do you think's going on there? I think Sony's probably taking a look at that and saying people are missing. I mean, I don't know about you. Ever since I stopped going to movie theaters, I don't consume nearly as much cinema, and it was a nice, like, I don't necessarily want to talk about it with other people, but going to a movie theater and seeing that other people are having the same experience with you, I think probably is correlated also with games, like going to a physical location and seeing how many copies they have of certain games, see what people are buying, see what's promoted. It's a very different experience uh, than the one left in stock buy right now that we get, which is an absolute lie, for everything that we ever see whenever we're buying at an internet platform.
When it comes to movies, which I think is a little off topic, because I think that there's been a conflation of GME and AMC. I think that there's always this kind of thing. Michael Saylor, I think, says it best. He's like, "What's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin. What's the second best? There is no second best." I think it's awesome that he says that. I don't personally believe it. I think that there are different blockchains, and the blockchains kind of have their own thing, and they can have different places. So I'm not in the same camp as Michael Saylor, but I think in this case, like, conflating GMC and AMC is not necessarily a great thing. Like, AMC has sold continuously into their run up. Every single time AMC has some kind of a price action, they issue more shares. Like, it's constant, and they have diluted and diluted and diluted pretty consistently. And it was one of the big criticisms of AMC is that they keep doing this. Now, GameStop has also done some of this, but I think that they're doing it for a different reason. And I've looked at and heard things that say that there is a tremendous amount of regulatory pressure that's going to be put on GameStop if there is some kind of a MOAS, and then there's, like big institutions that fold. If Ryan Cohen isn't, have a good defensive position that says, "Hey, I tried to do the best I could to sort of valve this and give some people an out and whatever," and so that narrative I think may be important for what's going on here. But on the movie line, I went and saw Dune 2 in the movie theater several times. I think if Hollywood put out movies that people wanted to see and it wasn't just constant, rehashes and sequels of properties we've already got and reboots of things that have already been put out, I think people would go, honestly. And I think Furiosa probably would have done way better at the movie theater if it had come out way closer to when Fury Road came out. I mean, it's just, I think Hollywood's kind of shooting themselves in the foot. There was also used to be a tremendous amount of exclusivity in the movie theaters. It was the fact that you wouldn't, if you didn't go see the movie in the movie theater, you had to wait a long time. Now it's like if you don't see it in the movie theater, you wait 2 weeks and it's on a streaming platform. There's no exclusivity reason to go to the movie theater because you're not missing out on something. It's just like, I'll wait a couple of weeks and I can see it at home. That's really hard to make the movie theater model work if there isn't this, well, I won't be a part of what everybody's talking about because I won't have seen the movie.
Well,
That's
I think in one part, I think like what we started out talking about with Berkshire Hathaway, like the possibilities of what GameStop becomes because of the amount of cash that they sit on is one thing, but I think they also hold on to what their traditional roots were, try to make that business model work. And I just I mean, I don't mean to compare it like with what's been going on the financialization side of AMC versus GameStop, but I do think that they were business models that were selected by Wall Street bets because these were business models that were being selected for termination by people who were only in the business of making money, and like some sort of expectation that that's not what we wanted as a society. And I think part of the bet that was taken on them by Wall Street bets was that they were wrong, and I do think they're right. And I also look at I don't love to play video games. I love to watch them. And I know that there's like all of these streaming channels. I was surprised to find that whenever I started wandering around the internet that there's all these things where people play video game and watch them. But then I wasn't, because when I had a couple of roommates in my 20s, they would play all sorts of games. Eden by Pixel Junk was my favorite. It was this game of like a little bug jumping around a garden, and to me it was more fun to watch than films. I'd watched tons of films, studied film, studied literature, and I got tired of the predictability of the narratives, the arc narratives of film, and I really enjoyed watching games because you didn't know what was going to happen. At some point, there was going to be a game over, or there's just like an unpredictable nature of it. So it would be fun if we could see. I don't know. I'm wondering off on a tangent here, but that's sort of why I brought up AMC, not because of the financial aspects, but because of the similarity in I don't know, watching a story unfold with a group of other people and being pleasantly surprised at some.
Well, that in some ways that is what's happening even with the GameStop situation. It's a whole bunch of people all having a shared experience together, and I think that in this world we're all kind of hungering a little bit more for those kind of common experiences, and maybe that's part of what this whole situation is tapping into as part of whatever. One other thing that I wanted to point out is there is a counterpoint to this idea that Roaring Kitty exercised his shares. Apparently there's a counter narrative going on, and we don't have confirmation from him as far as I know at this point. So at this point, we don't know whether he sold his call options or he exercised his call options. This is a counter narrative saying he didn't. He just sold his calls and then bought shares. There's a little bit of nuance to that because it depends on whether it puts Wolverine on the hook or not. So we don't really know yet, but I imagine we're going to find out sometime soon.
Well, I could. I think he probably it seems in line with his character that he did, but it'd be interesting to get the confirmation. I can't wait for another Roaring Kitty live stream. And I do.
Given his post with Dune, where he summons the sandworm, I don't see how buying shares would equate to that post. Did you catch that one?
No, did he post recent? Was this in the last day?
Yeah, hold on, let me pull it up.
I need to just to take my followers down to one person following and make that Roaring Kitty, because his memes, he's a meme god. Do you know what his story is in Wall Street Bets too? Was
See, this is his most recent post, and it was right before, he did whatever he did to get his 9 million shares. And I mean, this is a iconic iconic scene. This is where Paul Atreides is summoning the worm and kind of proving, that he is the Kwisatz Haderach and that he is the Lisan Al Gaib to the Fremen, and so he summons the old man of the desert, and this is like the big scene in the movie. So whatever he's doing ostensibly is this.
um, and I guess who is the metaphorical worm then?
Well, I think the worm is just, this massive thing that's going to, because in the story, the worms, they're used to destroy the the stronghold, because they've lost control of the main city on Arrakis, and so, for them to take that over, they use the worms as sort of desert power. And I think that that's just like his metaphor. It's like, hey, I've summoned the thing, and we're gonna go destroy the stronghold and the emperor here.
Yeah, and by the way, I have not seen this new version of Dune, so it does actually.
Lucas, Lucas, come
I
on, you gotta see this.
I know. You know what you told me? You told me to watch Robert Jordan's. That was
Well,
terrible.
yeah, I told you it was terrible. Of course, you have to watch it. I mean, as a fan, you got to watch it. But like, yeah, it's not good.
Well, it sort of put me off watching anything fantasy or science fiction adaptation related.
Okay,
Um,
I know, but this is not that. I mean, this is like the opposite side of that. This is where this is the, version of this. Like it's our generation, it's like this generation's Lord of the Rings, right? Lord of the Rings was not a faithful adaptation of the books. I mean, obviously they took a lot of liberties, but they told the story well. And I think that's what has happened here with Dune is they definitely have winnowed the story down to a certain amount of what they wanted to tell and what would work on the screen. And I think they've done a tremendously good job. So it is well worth watching. Not at all like when I told you you need to watch The Wheel of Time. Like you need to watch that because you're a fan, but not good. The question though, did you watch the animated shorts associated with the Wheel of Time?
no, I didn't see. I saw that there were animated shorts out, but
See,
okay.
those are fantastic. So what I think, if anything comes out of what happened there, it's that they should say, okay, we made a huge mistake. We should not have been doing this live action crapola. Let's just do an animated Wheel of Time, and everybody would be super happy.
So question about Dune because you brought up the Lord of the Rings with Peter Jackson. Um, I was a huge fan. I used to read the. I have them right here, actually, behind me, right next to Robert Jordan. All of the Lord of the Rings. I think I first read them when I was 11 or 13 years old. The thing, and again, I told you I've studied a lot of film, adaptation of film. When those movies came out, I was impressed that there was no love story. um they sort of get into a little bit of like Arwen and Aragorn. But they really, in I think I was just very interested that there was no love story. And Will of Time has plenty of love stories, by the way. So many love stories. It's like Days of Our Lives on God, I don't know, Magic. But does
Well, now what about this? Have you seen this yet? That there's a Lord of the Rings animated movie that's coming out soon.
I mean, no, I had not. But the first Lord of the Rings animated movies were incredible. Um,
Yeah, well, I mean, the first Hobbit movie was actually done by the precursor to Studio Ghibli. You know, the big anime house that has done all of the, the greatest Japanese anime of all time. So that if that looks kind of like, oh, what is going on with the style here, it's because that's essentially a Studio Ghibli movie.
No way. Did you ever see? I don't know what they ended up titling it, but Ursula Le Guin, um, Studio Ghibli, and I remember there's a founder of Studio Ghibli. I can't think of his name right now. Hayao Miyazaki, but his son, so good. I love those. Part of the reason I love Lord of the Rings is I grew up watching those over and over and over.
Yeah, so this was two different houses that did this. So the one with Bilbo in the lower left there, that was the Studio Ghibli one, and then it was Ralph Bashkin either Basky or whatever his name is that did the other ones, the sort of rotoscoped version. And I grew up with these too. I thought they were great. Honestly, they're really good animated versions of these. And so when we got our studio live action one, it was great too. But I mean, these were great adaptations. That's why I say if Wheel of Time did an animated, there's room for a lot of different adaptations in the world.
Well, I love that we're talking. I love that we wandered over into to fantasy series. Have you ever read Ursula Le Guin, The Wizard of Earthsea?
Yep, I've read it. Hmm.
Okay, so yeah, Studio Ghibli, they made the third of those. I can't remember. The Farthest Shore is what the book is. The Farthest Shore. I can't remember what the movie was made. Did you happen to catch it?
I don't remember catching that animated movie, so I'm gonna put that on my list of things to check out.
Yeah, put it on your list. It's not bad. It's not. I wouldn't say it's not great. It's that I wish they would have tackled the whole series, um, but they did not. So anyway, don't ever watch the live action version of the Wizard of Earthsea though, because it was terrible. Um, they just took the names of the characters and made up some stupid ass plot. So I think it was the Science Fiction Channel that did that back in the late '90s or something. Um, anyway, I'll watch Dune. I'll give the new one a watch. I actually sort of liked the mini series that was done in the early 2000s too.
Yeah, the Sci-Fi Channel one. Yeah, that was well done. As far as faithful adaptations go, probably the best that's ever been done. Shaky as far as some of the production values, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Really liked that one too.
It was good. Is
And
there
you
a
and
lot?
you and you heard about the Dune TV series that's coming out, right?
Of course not. I don't follow any media anymore, Grant. You are my source of media. Thank God. It got too. I mean, Aleph brought up Star Trek and Star Wars the other day, and I was like, I haven't watched the Star Wars film since the second of the rebooted Star Wars, and I still watch Star Trek: The Next Generation from time to time. It was on, I think it was on Amazon Prime for a while. It was fun to go catch those. Although the Wesley Crusher element is so grown, so Doogie Howser MD. Like, what? I still don't understand what this notion of the maybe it was the Queets Haderach, like it was a hearkening to Paul Atreides, but it was terrible in Star Trek. Like this whole
Well, here's the new series. So it's focused on the the origins of the Bene Gesserit. So.
And it is that you say the Bene Gesserit, not the Bene Jesuit, or guess somebody.
Well, I listen to a lot of audiobooks, so my pronunciations are always just going to follow whatever was in the audiobook. So the way they pronounce it is Bene Gesserit.
I always said the Bene Jesuit. Somebody told me recently that it was Bene Gesserit, and I was like, what? But
well, I mean, I just got to think that when they produce the audiobook, it's one of the things they have to do is get the pronunciations right. And even in the Wheel of Time, it's like, how are you supposed to pronounce those words? Like, you have to go back to the.
well, I mean, I love it's Michael Kramer and Kate Redding read those, but they vacillate between different pronunciations. Like it's Nynaeve, or they have different pronunciations in it. I always pronounced it Bene Gesserit because when I read it, I thought of the Order of the Jesuits. It seemed to me to be kind of riffing off of the Catholic Church in some ways. But not any strong correlation there. I don't want to. Please stay out of my DMs. I'm not saying that the Catholic Church is the Bene Jesuits. That's just why I pronounced it like that. But if you like listening to audiobooks, did you ever listen to George R. R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire? And talk about a terrible television show. But
for sure, I listened to it. Fantastic. Yeah, like one of the best.
Trees. He is so good. He and Jim Dale with J.K. Rowling, like those are they're great readers in audiobooks. I read a lot, but I listen.
Well, wait a minute now. No, since we're just surveying lots of books and media, what about Hyperion? Tell me you've read Hyperion on audiobook.
No, what's Hyperion? It's not even on my radar.
Oh my god, it's like one of the greatest sci-fi series of all time. So the first book is a riff on the Canterbury Tales. So it's like 9 disconnected stories. So what happens is there are these travelers, they come together, and they're all telling stories to pass the time, and they're saying, well, like, why are we here? So they're kind of telling their origin stories. And so it's a series of these little vignettes, and it's like when you're first approaching it, it's like, what is this? This doesn't make any sense. Like, why do any of these stories like correlate to each other? So it's this book about there's a planet called Hyperion, and there is a place on Hyperion called the Time Tomb. And in the Time Tomb, there is this creature called the Shrike. And the Shrike will just straight up murder you, just destroy you. But apparently, the Shrike will also grant you a wish if you're the right person. And so people will make pilgrimages to this, and most of them just get straight up destroyed because he's like made out of liquid metal, and he has these, like sharp talon claws and whatever. And most people just die, but like they're making this pilgrimage to the Time Tombs. And so the story unfolds over time, and it just gets wilder and wilder. And after you've read Hyperion and the second part of it, which is the Fall of Hyperion, then there's 2 follow-on books called Endymion and I think Rise of Endymion or something like that. Those 4 books comprise a set, and if you haven't read it, highly recommend it. Really, really good.
I'll definitely take, because I love Geoffrey Chaucer. Again, I studied literature and I focused on medieval lit. So definitely I'll check it out. I've seen it before.
Dan Simmons, so
yeah,
good.
I'm looking at it on my screen right now. Part of it, I've seen it over and over and over. I just did never. I even see that one of them won the Hugo. So I should read all the Hugos, but who's got the time? And
nobody's got the time. I think I heard a good quote one time that it said, read the best books first because you might not have a chance to read them all.
I totally agree with that. And I start books all the time and just throw them by the wayside. I saw.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. You start a book, you don't like it, put it away. Like, you gotta read what you like.
Okay, let the author know. DM the author and say, "Yeah, you didn't catch me by the 3rd chapter." I
And,
saw
and
it.
again, like one of my favorite authors, Stephen King, will even say this. Like he says, you don't like a book, just like move on. Like it's no big deal. Like read what you like. You don't like something, move on.
We talked about Stephen King. I don't love Stephen King so much, but he's okay. The Nicholas Taleb or Nicholas Nassim Taleb, sorry, not Nicholas Taleb. Nassim Taleb, I saw posted something the other day. He said, "I have bookshelves. I have books upon books and bookshelves upon bookshelves, and I've only read like 40% of them." And he said, "And that's how it should be." I also think that's interesting in like the books that you select, and this notion of having them waiting for them to read. Um, I also surround myself, like I take notes all the time. I don't throw my notes away. They're in piles and piles and piles around me. And just knowing that they're there is like a memory castle of some sorts. Have you ever read The Curse of Chalion by Margaret Masters Buhold? Speaking of Geoffrey Chaucer.
Nope, never read that one.
Oh, it's really good. If you there's I think there's three of them. I forget what the titles are, but they are sort of an alternate retelling of the unification of Castile and the Castile the feudal countries of Castile and Catalan to become present day Spain. Um, and I think it's also, I talk about, I don't know if you've heard me go off about justice and our justice system in the United States. Some of the political shows get a lot more of that double barreled from me, but we have this notion of a adversarial justice system as opposed to an inquisitorial system. And when you have the notion of a king, and the king is ordained by God, and this sort of like top down notion of justice, it's a very different system. Anyway, it's great. Those are it's a great sort of delving into
Give me the name one more time. I'm going to make a note.
The Curse of Chalion, Chalion, The Curse of Chalion, Margaret Masters Buhold. Really good.
The book that I'm currently reading is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie.
Haven't heard of that one.
I'm enjoying this one quite a bit. This one's been difficult for me to put my hands on because usually I use my local library system, and this one has had so much interest on it that if you even try to get one of these books, you're like 150 to 200 people deep. So I've been waiting on this one for a while, and I like the waiting. Honestly, that's part of the thing that makes reading a book fun is the anticipation. I think that there's too much instant gratification in the world, and so anything you can do to sort of put some distance between you and the thing that you want, I think builds anticipation and makes the satisfaction a little sweeter. I think too many people just get what they want instantly, and it really takes it away. Like I remember waiting for movies when I was a kid, right? I saw Back to the Future, and I had to wait for like I don't know something like 5 fucking years to see Back to the Future 2. And I was like, I used to look at magazines and I would see them making this movie, because they'd have some behind the scenes stuff. And it's like, wow, it's like I really had to wait for it. And then when I actually saw it, it was just like this, real experience. It was a lot of fun. So the waiting is almost as good as the doing.
I totally agree, and I well, I'm in a really small town. We have a really small library, but I go and work in the library in the afternoons, most afternoons, and I love the because also I don't. I do have my own bookshelf of books, but a lot of times I either like donate them to the library or requested for the library to get them in the first place because I love looking through the cards. And I've thought about this remember in the early '90s, late '80s, there was this like the FBI can go to the library and look see what you've read. And I thought about this the other day whenever Elon hid our likes on Twitter. I was like, I actually kind of haven't we been through this before? Like, I like it whenever people like it's the truest like power is not being ashamed of the things that you're interested in. I pull out books all the time. You know, I can talk too much on this. There was an 1890 copy of Rachel Plummer's diary in the library. It is now safely under glass. Rachel Plummer was Cynthia and Parker's cousin, by the way. She was abducted with Cynthia and Parker by the Comanche and kept a diary. Very, very interesting book. But yeah, an 1890 copy of it just sitting there on the shelf. But I really love, like, some of the books I pull out. Like, my teachers have read it, my parents have read it. It's and it's going back to that notion of like a shared narrative that gets you out of like this vacuous space of the internet where everyone is a stranger and everyone is anonymous. Um, I love libraries for that reason. So anyway,
Hey, so for a second, we should talk about OpenAI. So you've been watching, I imagine, everything that's happening with Apple and OpenAI and whatnot.
I've been watching it. I saw that somebody posted that the new was the chairman of the board for OpenAI was a former and longtime NSA employee.
Well, that's what we got. That's what I've got on the screen here. So we've
Oh,
got,
I'm staring at Hyperion still. Let me click back to the screen.
yeah, Paul Nakasone, bringing cybersecurity expertise to OpenAI's board of directors. Like, I don't know, man. I've never really liked any of this stuff. If you're gonna run an AI, run it locally on your own hardware with your own graphics card. That to me seems like the right way. Centralized AI, could there be anything worse? I'm not sure. Like, this is the worst idea of all time. Like, honestly.
I mean, I am generally not impressed with an AI, like such a term. Where's Aleph when we need him? Like, let's talk about large language models, because isn't that really what OpenAI is, or do they have anything besides LLs, like large language
Well,
models?
I think that, they're just generally in the business of developing AI, and I think ChatGPT was surprising to everybody that it was going to be as successful as it was, and that the large language models made the leaps that they did. If you look at the trajectory of artificial intelligence, and A1 and I would talk about this routinely because he's much more deeply in the space, but it's a thing that I've explored when I was working on my PhD. Was I was very interested in cybersecurity and also artificial intelligence. I never fully committed because I never actually finished my work, but there were areas that I had explored, and I was very interested in artificial intelligence and kind of how it worked. So I think it caught everybody by surprise because it wasn't really an avenue that anybody thought we were going to have a lot of success on. But after you do enough work on something, and you start to see the leaps, the exponential growth in the ability of something, and then you put something out, and it starts to look like it's solving one of the long-standing problems in computer science, which was the Turing test, right? If you can convince somebody that they're actually talking to another human, then that was said, that you've now crossed over, and that you have real intelligence, and that real intelligence is that if you can fool somebody into thinking that they're talking to another human when they're actually talking to a computer. And ChatGPT kind of looked like it was doing that. Like, it looked like it was about to cross that line. I don't think open AI is only down that one path. I would say that that's probably disingenuous to say that that's all they're capable of doing, because they're just generally in the business of trying to figure out how to do artificial intelligence, and how are they going to do it. And there are a lot of different ideas for how this might work, and I would not be surprised in any way to find out that they've been working on a variety of different avenues, and that they would come out with some new product any day, or some new revelation any day that is in a vastly different direction. I think that wouldn't be a good way to think about open AI.
Well, there's a couple of things that I think are interesting in that space. One, when ChatGPT came out, I thought it was best described by, I forget whom, but they said, imagine you searched in Google for something and it came back with one result and typed it very slowly back to you. Um, And there are things about like the predictive text and using like GPU clusters to do that like quickly, but I have not. I don't know.
Well,
I
there are strong similarities between the two, right? I mean, if you think about what Google's doing, Google is going out and it's ingesting all the data from the internet and then is allowing you to run queries on that data in a very structured way. ChatGPT has done something slightly different, which is to say, instead of just going out and processing everything on the internet, what we're going to do is we're going to have humans process all the data on the internet, put it into a very particular form, and then allow you to query it in a particular way. These are somewhat equivalent in the sense of like how do computer systems work, right? Because they're both ingesting large amounts of data, they're allowing you to do certain types of searches. A lot of what AI comes down to, fundamentally is how do you do search in a large space and how do you get off of local maxima? Because there might be a really good solution in the data set, but if your algorithm sticks you in the wrong spot, you need to get off of that. You need to find a way away from it. And so, there's ideas in computer science and in the ways that you can do search that allow you to get off local maxima. And that's, really important thing that you need to work through. And so I think there is an equivalence between what Google was doing and what OpenAI is doing. And, they're both trying to give access to human intelligence and human information and return it quickly in a targeted way. And so there are a lot of equivalences, but I think that OpenAI is doing something different than what Google is doing as far as just giving you one search result, because it's trying to give you a really structured answer and doing it in a way that is based off of very structured data.
well, I agree with all of that, but there, um, I don't know. I I don't know what to say to that, Grant. I guess like even when like T9 predictive text came out on a Nokia, I turned it off in the early 2000s. Why? Because um, I studied language. I studied literature and language, and when I took grammar 404, I learned that the joke of the English language is that grammars are rules for an analytical language. They are placed on like it's all about power, and s- and I've always found it like more interesting to find people who break the rules. So the notion that some like greater I don't know the notion that there is top down rules like going back to the curse of Chalian and inquisitorial versus adversarial. I rebel against that concept. I find like notions of deep reinforcement in computer programming interesting in breaking out of the I don't know the silos that you're talking about like with regards to what we're getting back in results. I do find that very interesting, but even when I look at like where do LLMs come from, the association um, with cybersecurity. I mean, to me, LLMs come from the same organizations that were very interested in reading everybody's communications and quickly found out that there was more communications than they could handle. And so when I see people like Paul M. Nakasone being courted by OpenAI, and also the concept of their world coin and the notion that people are going to scan their data, um, I see like state actors being very interested in these technologies and then being more beneficial to state actors than providing people with what they want in a commercial world. So the libertarian.
100%. Like anytime you have centralized aggregations of large amounts of data that give you insights into what your populations are thinking about or doing, yeah, the big government state actors are definitely going to be interested in that. And I am not at all surprised to see the NSA buddying up to OpenAI. Like not at all surprised.
Yeah, and I worry. I don't know. I think part of the what we will see in regards to that is a siloing of networks, which is one of the reasons I'm so interested in Chia. in I2P concepts. I think that we need to have networks that are independent of each other in some regards to forestall this. But um, I don't necessarily mind like the attention market. Uh, I don't mind that the attention market that say like Google runs on, that is also the sort of the flip commercial coin of OpenAI, WorldCoin, etc. I don't mind the attention market so much in that it gives me or pigeonholes me or silos me into things that it wants to show me, or gives me a structured like perception of the world that's very different from other people. But I don't I don't love the notion of like an endless scroll, or the ability to give you things that like addict you and to draw you too much into these platforms. So um, I don't know. Um, these are some of my concerns about OpenAI, and things that I think are like more true to as to what's been going on behind them. Like I don't. I think the getting away from algorithms is one thing. Deep reinforcement is really cool, but at the same time, like the attention monetization is hasn't changed. And the other thing that hasn't changed is the ability for state actors to interfere and to I mean like we see it all around us all the time. um like even going back to what was the Facebook, Cambridge Analytica, like think of what Cambridge Facebook was doing to stir us up, and now is it better that we're being pacified? I don't know. At least when people were stirred up, they were thinking about what they cared about in the world, if not expressing it in the best way. So,
Yeah, I recall the outrage. And I wonder how much that outrage just immediately subsided, and what the outrage will be when people start to really understand what's going on with how the AI data is being passed around. I know that some major corporate secrets have been leaked into the AI systems because people are taking very proprietary code, pasting it into the chat GPTs and whatever, and are essentially leaking closed source data into these models. And if you look at the ways that even it's being sold, it's like, hey, the data that's flowing in here, you got to be careful about what you're giving us, because like we're not saying we're keeping it private or whatever. And like they're also saying that they're using it for reinforcement training. So there's been people have gotten significantly in trouble for using these types of systems. And the way that these systems are starting to be embedded into certain programs, inadvertent data flow into centralized AIs is starting to be a big problem. So yeah, it's definitely weird situation out there for closed source software getting leaked into AI, and then potentially getting blasted back out to other people that they hadn't anticipated having it go out to, and then people getting in big trouble for using these systems and leaking internal secrets of companies.
well, I also I'm a local socialist, a libertarian in some fronts, a local socialist in others. I don't know that I believe the firm should exist. I don't believe that groups of people. I don't know, secrets. I have a problem with secrets, or at least if people are going to keep secrets, I don't want to. I don't want to have to deal with them and their secrets. And so this notion of the private sector, a world that we live in today, I think even we begin to question, like we're here in a crypto like monetary sphere, beginning to wonder the I don't know. I think that part of this notion that like moving everything to the private sector, which has been the libertarians' dream, is not the decentralization that we've been looking for. Um, I'm more also interested in the FPGAs that you brought up the other day. I think that having more complex puzzles, more complex like physical chips that can that can give us can do math for us are more interesting. Um, so I was kind of shocked to when you brought that to my attention the other day. In fact, when I woke
Oh,
up this,
the low power AI, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
using the new chips, yeah.
I think that's really cool. Um, so, but you know I'm a literature major, so I'll go back and read some Arthur C. Clarke and see if they predicted the world as it has truly come to be. Um, we are rolling up on the end of the hour. It's been a fun conversation. I love getting into books and science fiction and fantasy with you. And we had quite a week of news. So it's been a nice, relaxing talk today. Anything before we close it out? Rusty, have we bored you to death talking about fantasy or um, have you been on Amazon or Audible downloading your newest reads?
No, I haven't been downloading my newest reads. I'm not as big of a book fan as you guys. I enjoy books. I enjoy books more of as a piece of history. When you look at my bookshelf, I try to go and find books that have like really nice leather bound hardcovers. They have a lot of really good art inside of them. That have really good knowledge. That are unique pieces. And when you were talking about the book from 1890 and books about of that era, that's what I try to think about when I think of books, is just as something of history that we can try to collect and try to archive, because they're they're being lost fast, and you're not going to be able to get them back. And when you were talking about the AI, it just gets to me to thinking, where is the center of knowledge, and getting me to think about one of my favorite books I've heard you guys mention a couple times, The Giver. And and the thoughts of that, of where when we go into what do people go to seek out knowledge. And in the beginning, people seeked out knowledge from stories from their ancestors, and when people told them, and things of what is passed down orally. And then we started writing down books, and people went to books to find knowledge, and books is how you learned more about the world. And now everybody's just going to the internet, and everybody went to the internet when I was in high school and when I was growing up, and that's how you found your knowledge. You went to the internet to find your knowledge. And now it seems that people are just going to the AI to try to find their knowledge, and it's whatever the AI is telling them that their knowledge should be, is what people are starting to believe. And it goes into just that demonization of society that it goes into with The Giver, of where when you control the knowledge of people, when you control what people are able to think about, you can really sensationalize people and just start to control the way that they think. And people are really gullible. You think about people around the world, people can be really trained and taught to think certain ways. And when they are trained and taught to think that way, they are very steadfast when they get to that point. And they're really easy to say that everybody else is wrong, and the way that they were taught and the way that they were learned is the right way. And I just think that, when we go into centralizing everything around AI and these vast computer systems, that it's really going to harm society as a whole instead of help it. And I did enjoy you guys' discussions today. Some of the books, it was a different type of discussion than we usually have. I don't have as much input to go into them as much, so I was kind of more or less listening and enjoying the topic. But a great Friday.
All right. Well, I had to leave us with this since it kind of came to mind. The great George Orwell quote, threw it on the screen. He who controls the present controls the past. That's kind of where we're at, right? And well,
Did you know that George Orwell was now I can't think of it. Who wrote he was the student his do you know who his violin teacher was when he was growing up?
I don't. Tell us.
Oh shit, now I have to look it up. Give me two. Um who oh shit. We talked so many books, and I don't have the he was a science fiction author who wrote about the mankind being drugged by or pacified by drugs. I'll look it up for another day. I should have looked it up. I'll look it up. I'll look it up for another episode. Because it's not going to come to my mind.
All right. Well, we'll close it on that one. So we'll eagerly wait for your update on that one. But have a great weekend, guys. And as always, great conversation. Can't wait for next week and Monday. Actually, as a little thing that's going to be happening. So the GameStop shareholder meeting will be happening during our show on Monday. So I think we should be covering it live. So that's you can watch out for that on Monday. I think that'd be a good thing for us to do since it's going to be happening during a normal time.
Sounds good to me. All right. Well, have a good weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.
See ya.